Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for Orphan Black Season 2, Episode 4, Governed as If It Were by Chance. And this episode was, as usual, amazing. It was. It was a crazy, crazy episode, definitely. There were some big things that happened. It was not as good as last week, in my opinion, I will say that. But it definitely was a great episode. I loved it. It wasn't bad. It was amazing in my opinion. I just thought it was an amazing episode, and I really did love it. I'm trying to figure out if it was the best episode of the season. You know, last week's episode was big. I don't know. I want to say it is, but I feel like last week's was better. I don't know. Let's just get this recap, because I don't want to drag it on. Okay. So if you remember in the last episode, we're going to start off with Sara, of course. If you remember in the last episode, Sara and that guy got in the car. Sara and that guy Daniel got in a car, and then it crashed. Well, basically, turns out it was Cal who instigated the crash, because he basically wanted to kill that guy. We find out that guy is dead. He is dead at this point. So Sara luckily only has some flesh wounds, so she's okay. But, you know, basically, it seems like Cal's strategy was just an unsophisticated move. But, you know, pretty much, I really don't know. It seems like we don't know if we can trust Cal or not, but, basically, if we look at this, basically, you know, the thing is, with Cal, did he actually want to hurt Sara, or did he just want to hurt Daniel, and that's why the crash happened? Or did he intentionally want to hurt Sara? I really don't know if we can trust this guy. Because, again, they've said it before on the show. This is one of those shows where you really don't know who to trust, and I feel like this show, Cal's one of those people who we're not going to know if we can trust him or not. So, definitely that was very interesting. So, then what happens is Cal proposes that he and the girls jump into a camper and hit the road because he's now intimately involved in their quest. So Sara questions the ownership of the camper. He reassures her that it's not registered. So basically they want to make sure that Daniel's not dead. You know, they didn't make sure that he was dead. So I definitely thought that was interesting. I was surprised I didn't, you know, see that he was dead. But basically, Sara unlocks Daniel's phone, realizes that she can use it temporarily to keep Rachel and the rest of the Dyad group at bay. So apparently we can't use Felix, but they can't use Felix's credit card because, you know, it got tossed out the window. So then what happens is basically Sara in this episode, you know, Cosima then gets a call from Sara, and Cosima in this episode, she basically, her whole thing was connected to Sara. You do see that Cosima is still watching that girl who got hurt. You know, you do see that she's still watching that, so, I mean, that was kind of sad to see, but, yeah, you do see that she's still watching that, so, yeah. But she spills the beans about the Project Leda photo, and Cosima points out that the mythical Leda was a Greek queen seduced by Zeus, who was disguised as one. I thought that was definitely very interesting, the way they were comparing that to Greek mythology. That was definitely really interesting. I just thought that was interesting. Basically, what she's saying is that why would you hook up someone as a hot dude or lady when you could instant traumatize him or her with animal molestation? That's what she's trying to... That's basically what Cosima said to her. She said, you know, if there's a guy and a girl, why would you just traumatize him or her with animal molestation? I understand definitely her point there. So that was definitely pretty interesting. So in hope of having more information about the infamous project, Sara decides to backtrack home and search through Mrs. S's things. So Sara thus decides that it's not a good idea to leave her daughter alone with Cal, who, you know, she only spent 8 months, you know, she only spent a month with 8 years ago. So, you know, the thing is that this is your kid that you're dealing with. It definitely is just like, Sara's not really the most responsible parent. We definitely see that here, and I mean, Cal and Kira, they were not really getting along very well at all. I mean, you could clearly see that Kira missed her mother, so I mean, that was definitely a interesting thing. So then we see Mrs. S, because Mrs. S is actually sneaking up on people in cars, ripping off this guy's clothes in public. So that was definitely interesting. So later in the episode, Sara then breaks into her former home to snoop for Lita information, with a reluctant Felix acting as backup. Finally, Felix does come back. For most of the episode, he's with Allison, but he does finally come back to Sara, so I thought that was good. During the search, they find out several key pieces of information. We then discover that Mrs. S's former associate, Carlton, served a 15-year sentence for smuggling children like Sara, and that's pretty big. So additionally, we find out that the scientists in Project Lita photograph were actually Rachel's adoptive parents, so Susan, Ethan, Duncan. The two reportedly died in a 1970s explosion that killed 4 other scientists, and Carlton also reveals that he came to Toronto after hearing about the birdwatchers' betrayal, that when he mentions that their former associate had also been taken care of, Mrs. S basically says that, you know, she basically says, yeah, I know, my Unis Vista is top-notch. I mean, oh, that's unfortunate. And she then cryptically mentions that has to keep her foster daughter from finding out what she really is. So I definitely thought that was pretty big. So in a pretty smooth move, Sara then impersonates Rachel on the phone. And I definitely thought that was definitely very interesting, because now Sara is going to impersonate Rachel. And, you know, basically Rachel, you know, tricking the stuffy clone's assistant into unlocking his employer's apartment. By the way, where the hell's Rachel? Rachel's not dead. Where is she? Sara then sneaks into the inner sanctum in order to search for Lita information. And while Sara prowls, Cosima persists that Rachel was likely raised in a cynical manner, wherein she was aware of her status as a clone. This knowledge, in turn, might have instilled a sense of narcissism and elitism, and this theory stood in stark contrast with a childhood video of a dementive Rachel professing love for her scientist parents. So, in order for me to... So then what happens is, we then see that she is... Daniel is actually alive, and, I mean, it definitely is just... They couldn't have made sure he was dead. He's actually alive. He stormed into the apartment. He's covered in blood, and when Sara tries to escape, she's cornered and knocked out by one of Rachel's men, who, upon awakening, Sara then finds herself handcuffed to a shower, ready to be interrogated by her captor, while whom Sara seduces is Rachel's mother. Despite having instructions not to harm his target, Daniel advances on Sara with a razor, and it seems like he's about to kill her. I knew he was not going to kill her, because, you know, Sarah's the main character, so obviously she can't die, but then guess who comes to the rescue? Helena! Helena saves Sara, and it's very surprising that Helena saves Sara, and I definitely thought that was a big thing. And, basically, Helena, rescues her sister, shanks Daniel, and in a powerful moment, we don't know what Helena's going to do, because if you guys remember, you know, Helena, you know, was the one that, basically, Helena was the one that, you know, killed, you know, Helena was the one that, Sara killed, so basically, Helena, you know, was presumably dead, so we don't know if Helena's going to help Sara, or if she's just going to kill her right then and there. We don't know what's going to happen. It turns out, though, that, Helena basically hugs Sara, and asks for help in relation to the Proletheans who took something from inside of her, and, basically, we found out what that is, and let's go to Helena right now while we're on it. Helena in this episode, she was basically trying to run away from everyone. Gracie calls Ukrainian. When Helena wakes up, basically, she's not really sure what's going on or where she is or anything. And, you know, basically, she gets paid a visit from Gracie, who, as soon as Gracie is alone with a prisoner, she ends up going all children with the core and tries to smother Helena with a pillow, and it's just like, I hate you, get out of here. And Gracie doesn't double check that Helena's dead, and, you know, she doesn't make sure, because what happens is, she's not dead, because Helena said you sleep now, and she ends up killing, I mean, I thought Helena was gonna die right then and there, but she didn't die, and she actually killed Gracie. So, while searching for a way to escape the compound, Helena wanders into a makeshift gynecolonigal office that triggers memories of her being seemingly artificially inseminated by Mark and Hank. And it speaks volumes that despite all the disturbing events featured on the show, it's definitely one of the most upsetting parts on the show. So, basically, no one messes with Helena, it seems. That's what we've seen here. So, what happens after that? So then what happened, basically, is the very end of the episode. Remember when Helena was saying the Proletheans took something from inside of her? It turns out that we see all the Proletheans. We see a shot of Hank and basically all the crazy people, and they're overlooking a shot of an egg cell splitting in two. Basically, what we're seeing is that this is this is Helena's baby. Yes, Helena did have a baby, and they were successful with that. I was very surprised that happened, and that's how they end the episode. So yes, Helena did have a baby. And I was just really, really surprised by that because I didn't expect that to happen. And I definitely thought that was definitely really well done, the way they did that. I thought that was a great way to end the episode. And, you know, that was definitely really, really big. I'm interested in seeing where that's going to go. But that was what Helena and Sara had to do in the episode. And I just thought it was huge. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where that whole thing is going to go. Let's go to Allison. Allison, if you remember, you know, the thing with Allison was that she, in this episode... if you remember, she passed out in the last episode. You know, she was passed out. She ended up drunk in the last episode. And basically, she's awakened. She wakes up in this place, and she's still wearing a performance outfit. She thinks she's at a dyad institute, and she soon finds out that she's actually at rehab. So that was very surprising. I didn't think that Allison would end up in rehab, but okay. She actually finds out that she actually agreed to be institutionalized, you know. When she was drunk, she said she agreed to be here because she's talking to Felix and she's saying, no one just comes here. They have to actually check in and say, I want to be here. And basically, it's really just, this part was really big because Donnie then comes to visit. And when Donnie comes to visit, what happens is, you know, Donnie comes to visit. And what happens is, he delivers an ultimatum, and his ultimatum is, if you leave rehab before the program's finished, I'm taking our kids away from you. And if you remember, in episode 2, Donnie received a text from an unknown source reminding him that she makes her own choices. So this message was sent directly after Donnie had encouraged Allison to drink. So, you know, did Donnie actually want Allison to end up here? I really don't know. I guess we're just gonna have to see, you know, if he wanted her to be here. But that was definitely very, very interesting what happened there. And I just thought that was definitely a very interesting thing. And the only other thing with Allison, I feel like there was something more with Allison that I'm missing. I feel like there's something more that I'm missing, and I can't think of it. I can't think of it. I don't know. But basically, this episode was really, really good. I definitely really enjoyed this episode. I thought there were some great things in this episode, in my opinion. One thing that I do want to say about this episode is that I thought that it was definitely... Was it the best episode of the season? I really don't know. It was definitely really, really intense. There was a lot of really intense scenes in this episode. And I love that about this episode. I thought there were some great scenes in this episode. I thought there was a lot of really good character development in this episode. A lot more with Helena in this episode. A lot less of Allison and Cosima, which I was actually pretty surprised about that they didn't have a lot with Helena, you know, with Allison or Cosima as they have in the past 2 episodes. But I definitely thought that was definitely interesting because, you know, I feel like they had more with Helena because we kind of had too much with Helena, so we had to see more of her. And I definitely thought that was interesting. So, basically, this episode, again, as usual, it was a great episode. It wasn't the best episode of the season, but it still was a fantastic episode. Now that Helena's had this baby, does that mean there's going to be more clones? I feel like there's going to be another clone, and we're going to see what happens there. Helena and Sara, do you think they're going to make amends? Do you think that Helena's actually going to help Sara in some way? I really don't know. Can we trust Cal? I'm really on the fence of if we can trust Cal or not. Do you think he meant for Sara to intentionally get hurt? I don't really know. Felix, by the way, in this episode had almost nothing to do, which was a little bit upsetting. Does Donnie want Allison to be institutionalized? Do you think that's really what's going on there? And also, I think that's all I have to say for this episode. But again, this episode was great. As usual, I loved it. That's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for my review of In the Flesh. So, see you then. Bye.